This final project plan automation is absolutely key when you are building out an automation for planning projects, because what a lot of people try to do is they try to do the entire workflow in just one go. But what we've learned, so keep in mind, if you're tuning in for the first time, this is video number 4 of a 6-part series. And we're going in deep into how we built this project management system inside of Airtable for our client, and how it actually builds and plans projects with AI and assigns tasks with AI as well. And what a lot of people try to do when they're building these types of workflows is using one automation to do absolutely everything. But what we've seen here is that you actually need some human input after the first draft plan. So we went through the draft prompt in the previous video. Now we need to take this draft prompt here after the user, the customer, the client has gone through and just made sure everything aligns. Because AI is good, and it's really good if you feed it all the information it needs, but there are still times where you need to have a checkpoint in the process so that you can check that it's doing the right things. Because the last thing you want is for the entire workflow to run and for the foundation to not be set up correctly. Because if you don't get it right at the start of the automation, then the final output that you get is going to be nowhere near close to actually being what you need for your project plan anyway. So that's why we have a checkpoint in this workflow to make sure that, okay, we can quickly read these bullet points before we actually plan out the entire project, so that we can make sure that the AI is understanding it correctly. If it's not, then we might simply just add in and change a few details in this workflow here before we create this final project plan. So the final project plan is also added into this database here, or this table within the database that we talked about. So remember, in the last one, we executed that plan project here in this section here, which is a button with a formula that pushes in all the fields that we want. Then we have our execute final project plan button here, which is basically the same. So it's saying that if all of these fields have a value in them, then concatenate the webhook that we're about to talk about and send in all of the table IDs that we need for this workflow to operate. So if we come back into here, then we're doing this here in the final project plan. So we're saying trigger this workflow with a webhook, which is the button that we had in the table there, and then run through this automation here. So let's just do a quick test like we did last time. We're going to execute that, and we can see if we open up this bubble, it's added in our base ID, table ID, distributed tasks, and we set all of that up in the brand settings that I went through in the previous video. Then in the second module, it just closes that window out and catches that script. We're using a script, I should say, and then it pulls in the information. It gets the information via this API call with Airtable using the values that we sent in via the webhook here. So that then allows us to get all of that information so we can start to create our variables. So let's just give this an execute now, and we're going to go execute final project plan. And then we come back into our automation, and we can see now it's got all of that information from this first field, or in the body here in fields. So we can now see all the information we had in Airtable inside of our automation, which allows us to use it in the rest of the workflow. What we do all the time now is we set up our variables up front. So in this automation that I'm talking about here, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because it's very small. So if you ever need to change anything, then it's easier to do. But its best practice is to set all your variables up front, because you might have automations in future that are much more detailed than this. And you might have a certain variable that's used a dozen times in the rest of the automation. So if you ever need to update it when we set our variables, then you can just update it one time, and then the variable will update throughout the rest of the workflow. So we always want to get into that practice when we're building automations. It's best practice. It helps your clients so much better in future, and it allows you to debug so much easier in future as well. So as soon as we've done that, then we're updating that field by making a patch method request, and we're updating our status to say AI writing. So keep in mind, when we're executing these workflows, we want to give the client or the user some information in the dashboard to say that the AI is actually working on something. So that then updates that before it then goes through and creates the final project plan. So here you can see we're using these variables in this prompt here that we set in a couple of modules earlier. So we're simply just saying, here's the context, you're a project planner. Here's the project plan that we created in automation number 1. Here are the team member roles that we have and that we've pulled in from the team members database. And then we're saying your instruction is to combine both of these and create a detailed task with the start and end dates. And then important, make sure you create those start and end date times to be good times. So you don't want to be giving them due times in the middle of the night when they're probably not working. You want them to be within working hours, essentially. Then we give it an output structure, and that output structure is pulled in from the actual workflow itself. So remember, we said we give our clients the ability to change the output structure if they want. So we automatically populate this field using an automation. The automation can be found in here. And we're simply saying when there's a new project, add templates from the brand conditions. So if brand assets is not empty, update that with the values. So we're updating it with the values from the brand assets throughout here, so that every time a new record is created in the projects table, then it automatically just uploads that prompt. So that gives two benefits. It allows the user to update the field themselves if they want to change it, or if they want to change it permanently, then they can update it in the brand assets, and then the automation is going to continue to run. So again, we always want to be giving as much of the important parts of the prompts inside of the database or inside of the interface so that we can make those changes easily. What most people do, if you look around most YouTubers and people who are building these automations, they're just putting the prompts inside of the AI tool or inside of the automation tools like NAN or Make.com, which works and it looks impressive and it's great. But from a user standpoint, from a client standpoint, it's actually really bad practice, because if they ever need to update it, they have to go into the tool, they have to leave their existing workflow, and it's just so slow and really a really bad experience. So by putting the prompts inside of the tables, inside of the database tools, inside of the interfaces, it's so much easier to operate. So we've got that prompt in there now. We're using OpenRouter.ai. So this OpenRouter is an aggregator. It pulls in any type of AI model that we want. And then we can simply have our model selected and map in our model here. So we're saying that we're going to map in that model. We have a fallback, which means if that model is overloaded, we can fall back to another one. And we have our max tokens mapped in and our temperature mapped in as well. So we can have full control over the max tokens and temperature from the dashboard as well. Then before we send it back to Airtable with an API call and a patch method, we're going to make sure that it's in JSON. So if anytime you are using Airtable API calls, then you're going to be using this JSON down here. And often the outputs that you get from OpenRouter, even if you select, so it sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. I talked about this before. You have an enabled JSON mode value here, which should turn the final output, the AI output, into JSON so you can send directly in via an API call. We found it was a little bit temperamental, and that the most consistent way was to actually just create a JSON module using the make modules. Then we send that JSON string into the AI output final project plan field of Airtable, and that just seemed to be so much more consistent. So we just have a bit of a JSON string here. If you ever not really understanding that, ChatGPT is great at helping to create this. If you do use it in ChatGPT, sometimes what it will do, if you have different variables in here, try and wrap a JSON string with your two quotes. But the JSON string actually does that automatically. So we don't want to be adding them in twice. So that's why you can see the quotes around here, this top one, because we're not using the JSON string module output. But in this one, we don't have the quotes because it's actually automatically added in this section, in this variable here. So we click save, and that's really about it. It's a very simple automation in order to produce that final plan. But remember, the reason why we're creating this in 2 steps is so we can have a checkpoint first to make sure that it's on the right track, to make sure it's understanding this correctly. Probably half the time you're going to have to update this, at least in the beginning, until you get better at adding more context in this field here. And then over time, if you're updating your context better and better each time, then the AI will start to understand who does what a whole lot better. Then you have the final project plan here that is structured like this. The other reason why we have this output like this is because we structure it a little bit differently for this final automation here that takes all of that final project plan in the actual dashboard. So it pulls in all of this information, and then it begins to split all of that information into individual tasks and assigns those tasks to your team members automatically. So that's what we're going to be talking about in the next video. And make sure you subscribe, because we're going deep into not just this product, but many products in future. So any product that we create for a client, we turn into a template that you can buy for a fraction of the cost. So basically any of our templates that we've built for clients and we've built them into their businesses for 5, 10, 15, sometimes 20 times the price that we're actually selling it for on the website. So you have full control over those templates once you buy them from us, and you can install them into as many client accounts as you want, making a ton of money back. So it's an absolute no-brainer to take all the development work that we've done up front so that you can use our templates. You can even improve on them before you install them into clients as well. So I'd encourage you to go onto the website and check that out. Now, if you do buy a template from us, then you also get free access into our AI automation community where everybody's learning from each other. Plus we have like 5 expert masterclasses in there for you to get started with. We have 3 different free AI automation templates for like metrical and social media and team tracking and things like that. So there's a ton of extra benefits that you get from joining our community by purchasing and investing into one of these templates as well. So I'd love to see you inside, but remember, this is video number 4. We've got 2 more videos to go in this series, so I will see you in the next one.